Well, happy Thanksgiving week for those that celebrate. This is Harry Brelsford with SMB Nation. We have a special edition of our weekly webinar this week. So this weekly webinar is on Tuesday at noon Pacific, because in the U.S., of course, we have Thanksgiving on Thursday. And then we were just having a conversation before we went on the air that a lot of countries are celebrating, if you will, Black Friday, the shopping day. I do want to give a shout out to Small Business Saturday. So I have a blog up on SMBNation.com about what Small Business Saturday is and how you can participate as an MSP, a partner, a business owner, what have you. SMBNation.com, and you'll find my piece on Small Business Saturday. With that said, it's midday on the West Coast, mid-afternoon on the East Coast, evening over in Europe, and as I always like to say, very, very early over in Asia and Australia. So thank you for joining us, and we do literally have people join us from a variety of countries. What's interesting today, so let's talk about why we're here. What's interesting about today is this is our first look at Microsoft 365. So I'm joined by some experts. I have JC and Stephanie who are joining us, and I've worked with JC over the past couple of weeks to put together a presentation because this is a brand new topic. We've reached out to industry. And, you know, the cool thing about industry is you have the scientists, you have the people that are actually doing this stuff and can speak to it. And Microsoft 365 was just announced at the beginning of November. So with that said, I don't have a lot of event announcements as usual because we're headed into the holiday season. We will continue to present webinars and so on, but JC, I'm gonna hand the talking stick over to you. If both of you could introduce yourself, and let's get going. We have a lot to cover today.
Yes, thank you, Harry. I will let Stephanie present herself first, and then I'll present myself, and we'll get going.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Stephanie Roach. I'm the product manager for Office 365 here at ShareWeb. We're based here in Sherbrooke, Canada, so sunny country today. And I've been working in IT for the last 20 years, and I'm really looking forward to presenting Microsoft 365.
So, hi everybody, I'm JC. I'm the marketing strategist at ShareWeb for Office 365. I've worked with tech companies for a couple of years now, and I'm pretty excited to get to talk to you about Microsoft 365. So,
all righty, well, let's start that talk.
Let's take a look at the agenda for today. So we're going to talk about the landscape for IT today. Then we're going to talk about what is Microsoft 365, who is the Microsoft 365 customer, what's the opportunity for partner, and then we're going to talk a little bit about who's ShareWeb, and we have a Q&A session at the end. So before we start, we have some polling questions to get to know you a little better. So Jennifer, if you can start the first one, please.
There we go. We always have the trustworthy Jennifer over in the radio control room. The poll, folks, is reading, do you see a future for workspace as a service? So if you could select one. If you joined us late, we're having an academic conversation on a new SKU from Microsoft called Microsoft 365. So please answer that. And Ginny, why don't we close that out and move on to the next question? That was a yes-no question. And we have 91% at yes. Do you see a future for workspace as a service? Thank you, Ginny.
Cool.
This is very interesting.
And the next question is, do you feel like security is an issue in today's world? We have a yes-no. Folks, I always like to fill a little bit of airtime while you're answering the question, and you can also take a look over at SMBNation.com. We are accepting registrations for winter quarter of MSP Tech Talk. Okay, Jenny, I think they've had enough time. And it's 100%. Boy, how about that? Oh, that's a softball question, but a good question. And finally, the question is, do you feel like you understand Microsoft 365? And we'll let the folks answer that for just a moment. To our Canadian friends, by the way, it'll be just less than 48 hours. About 48 hours, we'll be giving the turkey the hot foot down here. So, big day coming up Thursday. All right, Jenny. And the question is this. Now, this is interesting. So, yes, at 41%, you feel you understand Microsoft 365. No, at roughly 60%. I like it, JC. I like it, Stephanie. Looks like we have some work to do today.
Yeah, that's great. So now that we know each other a little better, we'll move to the first part of the webinar. So the first thing we need to do is to look at the digital landscape and how it looks like today. So there's a new generation of workers that is on the rise, and they've grown with the internet. So today, in 2017, millennials represent 40% of the workforce. Since I'm part of that group, I can tell you firsthand, collaboration tools are essential for us to be able to work efficiently. So to put weight on what I just said, here are some interesting stats that you can use when having the Microsoft 365 discussion with your customers. 50% of the global workforce will be mobile by 2020 and will spend more than 50% of their time in collaborative activities. 60% expect employers to provide state-of-the-art technology. 83% of workers say they are asked to be creative at work either daily or weekly. And 41% of employees say they spend more time away from their desk than they did 2 years ago. So this is what they see as employee when they look at how things are going in their businesses. So these are just the collaboration perspective. But what about how they use the tools? As you can see in that image, we have several things to look at. First, there's no consistency with the operating system and the Office suite. You have people running on Windows 7, 8.1, even Windows 10 on some occasions. And you have some people working from home with their devices. So it's nearly impossible to keep track of what's going on with the IT in a company. And I'll tell you something that happened to me when I was talking to the CIO of a SMB near us. I asked, what operating system are you running? And he looked at me and said, mostly Windows 7. And I said, what do you mean, mostly? And he said, I honestly don't know. We lost track. So this is one aspect of the problem we're facing with today's technology, but it's just one aspect. I once talked with a director of engineering in an SMB that was developing new processes, and knowing that I was working for a cloud company, he said, oh, I love working on the cloud. And I replied, oh yeah? What cloud solution are you using? And he told me he was putting all of his blueprints on Google Drive. And I asked the obvious question, do you mean the consumer Google Drive? And he said yes. So I don't know if you were aware, but in the terms and conditions from Google, it is stated that everything you put there is their IP. So I wished him good luck with Google. So as you can see, it's really hard to have a clear picture of who uses what. And this is where Microsoft 365 comes into play, because it can prevent situations like these. I'll give the control over to Stephanie so she can present to you what is Microsoft 365.
Thank you, JC, for this introduction. Now, as I take control over the presentation.
You got control.
Excellent. Okay. What is Microsoft 365? I think it's best to describe Microsoft 365 as the new digital workspace. It's an integrated solution that combines the best-in-class productivity tools with security and device management. This solution, it really enables you to bring your customers to the cloud with the best that Microsoft has to offer to run SMBs. You'll see that Microsoft 365 Business focuses on security. Now, when we think of hacking, or we think of terrible stories of companies being hacked, we think of large companies like Equifax. But studies have shown that nearly 40% of cyber attacks do attack SMBs. And out of that, 60% of small companies go out of business within 6 months of the attack. Now, Microsoft 365 Business is designed to help keep company data secure while making sure employees are the most productive, whether they're working within the office or outside on the go. Hold on. Now, what's included in Microsoft 365, or as we like to say, what's under the hood? Of course, it includes the latest version of Office 365 installed on all PCs and devices. This includes Office apps, online services, and the new Microsoft Business Center applications. It also includes Windows 10 with all the cloud-based management features so that everything is always kept up to date. Its automatic updates keep apps and devices current with the latest security protection and features from Microsoft. It also includes the best of Microsoft's Enterprise Mobile and Security Suite so that your customers' data is protected across both the company-owned and personal-owned devices. But what's new and distinctive about Microsoft 365 Business, it's its single admin console. Microsoft 365 Business really has simplified user management and the security features by making them configurable through one console. So we'll just take a few minutes to look at that. You'll see here you've got 3 tabs. In the Setup tab, you'll be prompted to enter or create a customer domain and add users to Microsoft 365 Business. This works exactly the same way as it does when you're setting up an Office 365 subscription. But the Microsoft 365 portal takes it a little step further by simplifying the deployment of Windows 10 and making sure that all the security features are activated. Again, we'll look into those. Now here in the step 1, in the tab, this one deals with setting up policies for managing Office 365 data in iOS and Android devices. Now, with most employees these days using personal mobile devices for work, it's really essential that policies be implemented to protect the company data. This menu of options allows you to quickly set up best practices for your SMBs. You'll see there are 2 sets of options. The first set focuses on making sure the company data is protected, while the other one focuses more specifically on how users are able to access Office apps on their mobile devices. Now let's have a closer look. Here, sorry about that. I'm sorry. Yes, I was just having trouble with the control of my screen. I'm okay. Do you have any questions?
Well, I do, and I have a question. When would you like the questions asked? So I want to respect if you'd prefer to have a point in time, or can I ask them as they come up? We do have questions building.
Okay, well, how about we just go through the different views of the console, and then perhaps we can see if those that information answers those questions, or then we can take questions from the audience.
Yep. Okay. Please continue.
I'm just sorry because I'm having... Okay. So here you'll find 3 options available to help keep work files protected when mobile devices are lost or stolen. These are turned on by default because it's hard to imagine the scenario where a company wouldn't want these protections in place. Okay, first you'll find the delete work files from an inactive device option, which is good to have if a device is lost, but it's also great in other cases. Now, just imagine an employee buys a new phone. What happens to the old device? Does it get replaced? Does it get put in a drawer somewhere? We don't really know what happens. So we want to make sure that the data on it is protected. This option will make sure that the device is wiped after it fails to check in within a specified number of days. The second option stops users from saving company files anywhere other than the OneDrive for Business, so company files don't end up where they're not supposed to. The third option forces encryptions on all work files. So this, if the device gets lost, for example, stolen, or even hacked, the company data is still safe. Now, think of it as a strong last line of defense. If for some reason the company needs to access encrypted files, then the key can be provided to unlock the encryption. The second set of options focuses more specifically on how users are able to access Office files on their mobile devices. Although you see the previous options were toggled on, this set is turned off by default, as there may be different circumstances where they're not relevant to a type of business. Now, just imagine the different requirements between a legal office and a print shop. Now, for those businesses that do require additional protection, Microsoft 365 offers options such as requiring a PIN or a fingerprint before opening an Office app, or requiring users to sign in again after a certain period of being inactive. You also have the option to prevent users from copying content from Office apps into personal apps. So that would prevent employees from copying sensitive information and share it outside of the company. In this step, the wizard will allow you to configure Windows 10 devices security and management settings. These options will allow you to make Windows Business as secure as possible by ensuring that key security features are turned on and kept on. Now, this will limit third-party apps that can be installed, or making sure that OS updates are installed automatically. Here, the last toggle of this step will allow you to automatically deploy on Windows 10 devices the Office apps that come within Microsoft 365 Business. Turning this will also ensure that Office will be kept up to date. So, in other words, behind the scene, this toggle invokes the Office deployment tool to manage the install. Now, before Microsoft 365 Business, this level of functionality when it came to security was only available via the Office 365 E3 or higher. So just this makes Microsoft 365 a greater value for your customers. So on to you, Jennifer. I think you have information on SMB Nation Podcast.
Yeah, it's going to be Harry who's going to present some information on their podcast. So to you, Harry.
Yeah, absolutely. So, folks, today's made possible by the generous support of SureWeb, and they're a big community supporter and also a resource as we look at some of the new technologies. So, one of the things we have done in the past several weeks is launch a new podcast series. So, love to have you click over now, screen number 2. Don't close out of the webinar, but over on your second screen, you have my permission to click over to smbnation.com, and then on the main menu, the top bar menu, you'll see podcasts. And if you want to go ahead and sign up for 1, 2, or 3 of them, please do so. And I know we'll keep you focused on screen 1 with our webinar as well. So thank you very much for supporting the community, both the attendees, SureWeb, and everybody else. With that said, is now a good time for a couple of questions?
Sure.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. So Thomas Craig had an observation. It's a statement, but I think it's worthy of a conversation. He says, Microsoft 365 is our new small business server. And I'll take a reply to that first, and then JC and Stephanie, I'm welcome your thoughts on that. You may be aware that Small Business Server was a big part of our community. That's the reason for being with SMB Nation. And that went away just to level set 5 years ago. This past July was the end of life announcement. And then it had an 18-month runway in terms of, when it was officially retired. So I replied to Thomas Craig on the answer form. That's an interesting perspective. I hadn't thought of it that way. JC, Stephanie, don't know if you have any thoughts on this being the new small business server for our audience.
It's close to that. What they did with the package that they pulled together is offer the possibility to companies that want to move completely over to the cloud to do it. So we'll talk about who's the customer for which product, because you have Microsoft 365 Business and you have the Microsoft 365 Enterprise E3 and E5. So I think the small business server is intended to be replaced by that product. Yes.
Sure. Okay, moving along. David Spiegelman asked, does this work with the CSP model? So is this as part of the cloud services provider motion?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Stefan Allen
Actually,
Holt.
it's brand new. It's been available through CSP as of November 1st.
Yep. Stefan Allen Holt is asking, to what extent is Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 2 is needed to extend the security of Microsoft 365?
So Microsoft 365 includes many functions from Azure AD already, and I think that for the enterprise versions you have the premium added, but I don't want to go too far and give a full answer, but I think so.
Okay, then finally for this round we have Ann Westerheim. Ann is asking, with Microsoft 365, do we purchase hardware without an OS and then subscribe?
That's a very good question. There will be devices that are Microsoft 365 powered. So these devices will be, when you open it, you have to enter your ID and password. But it's going to be, not all devices will be sold with the Microsoft 365 powered mention. So you can still buy devices that have Windows 10, Windows 10 Pro, and so, but you'll have devices that are ready for Microsoft 365. So the only thing you have to do is fire up the laptop, enter your ID and password, and every settings from your business will be enabled on your computer without doing anything else.
Okay, we have a few more questions rolling in. So Thomas, if you could hold on just a second, let's continue the presentation and we'll take another break for questions.
Perfect.
Excellent.
So, all right. So now let's look at who's the customer for Microsoft 365. There's different customers for the different products I mentioned earlier. And if your customer wants the latest OS and Office, is ready to move completely to the cloud, and needs to have control over company data on devices like Stephanie mentioned earlier, then Microsoft 365 Business is the right option for them. But if he isn't quite ready to move to the cloud, then you should look at Office 365 Business Premium, because it supports some of the features that are blockers to moving to Microsoft 365, such as on-premise file shares. And finally, if the customer has more advanced needs, like cloud voices or advanced security and data protection, then Microsoft 365 Enterprise might be the right solution to help them. You can also use some compelling customer events to help facilitate the conversation. The Office 2007 or Windows 7 end of support are great opportunities to re-engage your customers and get them onto Microsoft 365. If customers they have on-premise components like, as we talked earlier, small business server, then you can start a conversation on Microsoft 365 to serve their need better. So here's a good chart that can help you define when to sell what to who. You can see the two axes, IT complexity and size of the organization. This is a way to target the right customer for the right product. But as you know, there's no hard and fast rule on the right plan for all SMB customers. You have to listen to their needs and pick a plan based on the size and complexity of their infrastructure. you should rely on the customer's desire environment to pick the right plan. And most of the time, you are talking to a business decision maker and not necessarily to an IT pro. So you should have a broader conversation about their business needs, and the customer will let you take care of the IT decision on their behalf. Sorry. So here's a little chart that helps you decide either Microsoft Business or Enterprise better. So you should consider Microsoft 365 Business for those that are looking for a solution that help them protect their business from security threats, like Stephanie mentioned earlier, while enabling their employees to work on the go. So as I mentioned, it has Azure AD on it, so you can go all in the cloud with Microsoft 365 Business. And on the other hand, if you should consider Microsoft 365 Enterprise if your customer's organization size is over 300, if he is in a highly regulated industry like healthcare or legal, if your customer needs to have an on-premise domain controller, or if your customer needs to use a specific feature like e-discovery, which is only available in the Enterprise suite. So here's something that can be of value to you. 30% of SMBs have extra security and management needs. This makes them strong candidates for Microsoft 365. These types of organizations that process highly sensitive data operate in regulated industry like finance, healthcare, or develop in-house software. They have unique challenges that require sophisticated security solutions available as part of Microsoft 365 Business or Enterprise. And I think this is the right time to talk about the GDPR compliance. This is a regulation that will change drastically how you do business. So for those that aren't familiar with it, starting on May 25th, 2018, the EU will unify data protection throughout the General Data Protection Regulation, aka GDPR. Any organization that processes data with a company in the EU will have to be GDPR compliant. And this is a concern that can be a good conversation starter since Microsoft 365 is GDPR compliant. So I'm going to hand the control over to Stephanie for the opportunity for partners.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Steph, is it okay to ask a couple questions? They're really starting to build up.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh boy, it's gonna be one of those days.
If we don't answer all the questions, we certainly can address them after the webinar and make sure that everybody gets an answer to the question. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple long ones that I'm probably going to have you do that. So quickly, Thomas Craig, thank you, Thomas. Once again, commented the Windows 10 and Microsoft 365 is an upgrade license. He goes on to say your PC will be upgraded to Windows 10 Enterprise because that also addresses a question from Tom. Tom asked, related to this, he says, I thought I read that Microsoft 365 does not include a license for Windows 10. So, folks, can you clarify Windows 10 with Microsoft 365, the nature of the license?
I'm not sure I understand the part about the nature, but yes, it is included. JC?
Okay. Yeah, well, I have the same answer. It is included.
Absolutely, and that was one of the conversations that we've had with Microsoft, was that so many features included in Windows 10. A lot of businesses don't understand the importance of upgrading to Windows 10 in terms of the security side. So it's the centerpiece of Microsoft 365.
Yeah,
okay, great.
It has been a problem with other OS. They've been the backdoor to ransomware a lot of times, and this Microsoft 365 product is the answer to all those security breaches that happens all around the world, because big corporation will go out in the news because it has happened to them, but a lot of small businesses are impacted by ransomware or other security threats.
Yep. Okay, Brian McNally. Brian, I'm going to come back to your question. It's a little bit lengthy, so forgive me. I'll come back to that. We have Peter Cole asking, is advanced threat protection available with the Microsoft 365 business offerings?
I'll have to pull out the feature sheet, but I don't think so. Give me a second.
Yeah, no problem. While you're doing that, we'll move on. Milton Jones comments, Microsoft 365 is not a server. It's Office 365 plus EMS plus Windows 10. It's a bundle of these products. He goes on. O365 and EMS runs in the cloud. Windows 10 Pro runs on the PC laptop. That's more of a statement. Thank you. Lawrence, it's true you've already answered. Lawrence Steinhardt comments, Windows 10 Enterprise will only upgrade from Pro version 10, 8, or 7. Let's see. Tell you what, Stephanie, why don't we jump into the next section? I've got a lot of questions, but let's go ahead and move on, and we'll come back on the flip side. I'm managing them. I got you covered.
And also, like I said, if the ones, especially very specific, I mean, probably there's some people out there who are looking for very specific information. We'll be, more than happy to answer those by the end, by the end of the week.
Sure. Offline,
we'll just take a look.
Yeah, that would be Brian McNally. Okay, Stephanie, it's all yours. All right.
Now, what does Microsoft 365 mean for you? And we've had a really, I would say, a privileged relationship with Microsoft since we've become a CSP, but also in terms of Microsoft 365, we had the preview trial available, so we've had some great feedback from partners as well as feedback from Microsoft. So we really feel like Microsoft 365 business really hit the marks in terms of increasing profits and expanding the partner service offering. The features that were presented during the webinar really show how Microsoft 365 Business can simplify the sales cycle by offering a single solution to replace legacy applications. I love the slide that JC presented earlier on, where you'll see different devices using different operating system, and this is really the good opportunity to put everybody up to date with their OS. It also allows you to deploy new organizations faster with a unique console. We've looked at it very briefly, but it really simplifies the process of deploying a customer a lot faster. It also addresses security concerns, and it really brings the conversation to date with your customers and establishes your expertise as a service provider. The security features also allow you to address new markets that may have been restricted by regulations, such as the ones that JC showed earlier. Seems to be a delay when I click on that. Now, we know that Microsoft has been building solutions for SMB for a long time, but typically you've had to put the pieces together yourself. Now, this is one solution that really helps you become your customer's one-stop shop for always up-to-date technology. There was a study that was conducted by Forrester, and it found that Microsoft 365 Business enables partners to increase profits through higher managed services attach rate, and higher margins, even up to 8% on existing margins, and increased consulting services revenue by up to 20%. The other feedback that Microsoft received during the trial period was that the sales cycles were accelerated because Microsoft 365 Business really simplifies the licensing model and just makes the buying decision a lot easier. Now, throughout the market trial, partners felt like the customers viewed them more as a trusted advisor, and that Microsoft 365 Business could really contribute to their client retention. Now, there was another interesting study that showed that the average budget spent by SMBs on IT by employee is approximately $1,300. Now, this includes hardware, software, IT services, and cloud services. Microsoft 365 Business is a great solution to tap into a larger share of that budget while offering everything SMBs are looking for to create that digital workplace. Now, many of our managed service partners are looking for ways to capture more revenue in areas such as managed security services and advisory services. With Microsoft 365, for example, you can easily create a sort of bring your own device as a service offering with integrated security features, and you can really deliver the ability to increase data protection across Windows and mobile devices. This could actually help you get a better share of that per employee budget, as well as a bigger profit margin. Now, I believe we have one last polling question.
All righty, Ginny, there we go. The question is, what do you consider to be the best feature that Microsoft 365 has to offer? We have the configuration panel, simplified security, mobile device management, and workspace as a service. Folks, if you could take a second to answer that, and I indicated, by the way, when your time allows, over at SMBNation.com, you'll see some information regarding our winter quarter with MSP Tech Talk and other things. Okay, Ginny, go ahead and close the poll. We have configuration panel, 34%, simplified security, 24%, mobile device management at 18%, and workspace is a service at 24%. Very interesting.
I would have thought mobile device management to be a bit higher. Well, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, back to the presentation deck, Ginny.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to answer these questions. So I will need control back. All right. So since we're getting closer to the end, we'll give you some information on who's SureWeb and how we can help you grow your business. So here's how you can get ready for Microsoft 365. We have two decks that you can download. One is the Introduction to Microsoft 365, and the other is the Customer Pitch deck. There's also a Partner FAQ that addresses most questions you might have. So we'll give the deck to you, SMB Nation, and people that have access to this deck can click the button to download these three contents. And for those that aren't, yeah,
and JC, if you don't mind, a common question is, will there be a recording of the webinar and the decks? And the answer is yes to both. Please continue.
All right. So for those who aren't familiar with SureWeb, once you become a partner with us, you get access to our partner portal called Cumulus, and this portal lets you provision different solutions. You can do most of your tenant management through the portal as well. So in this specific case, we offer the 5 SKUs for Microsoft 365, and we'll show you how you can sign up in a minute. So here's what you get when you become a SureWeb partner. We have a flexible partnership model. First, we offer the referral model. With this one, we build a customer, they see our brand, and they get access to our unlimited 24/7 support. The second model is co-branded, and with this model, you build a client and decide the price. They see your brand with the mention supported by SureWeb. And they get also access to our unlimited 24/7 support. The last model is the white label. With this one, they don't even know we exist. You take care of the billing, they see your brand, and we offer you our unlimited support so you can support them back. So if you want to learn more about our partner program, you can send an email at partner@sureweb.com, and I'll flip the control over to Stephanie for the rest of the presentation.
Okie dokie. And Stephanie, we have questions queued up when you're ready, but please continue.
All right. Do I have access to this? Exactly. Very quickly, who is SureWeb? For those of you who don't know who we are, we like to say here at SureWeb that we're a company that was born in the cloud. Our our focus is really on SMBs. We relate to SMBs. Our partners are SMBs, and most of them are targeting SMBs as well. We're also a Microsoft Cloud Service provider and have been so for 2 years, ever since the program was started. And our staff includes many Microsoft certified experts, and the company invests continuously in meeting the highest certification requirements. So today we're proud to say that SureWeb is trusted by over 5,000 partners and 45,000 organizations across the world. And it would seem our hard work has paid off, because we just recently been picked RCP's Editor's Choice Award for the best CSP offering. Lots of acronyms there. So what makes SureWeb unique is the fact that we're entirely focused on a partner success. And how do we do it? Well, we combine technology and people so that you can start selling cloud services in just a few minutes. New partners just have to visit our website, as JC mentioned, choose the partner program that fits your business model, and sign up and start selling almost right away. We also simplify provisioning, and for that we've developed Cumulus, the portal that JC just spoke of, which is a user-friendly partner portal that lets you start provisioning and manage your customers' cloud services just in a few clicks. Cumulus also provides you with valuable insight on your business, such as invoicing and monthly recurring revenue that you can expect. It also lets you manage your offers and set your own retail prices. And we just showed you previously our partner toolbox, which includes relevant materials such as product information, tips and tricks, and how to improve your marketing strategies and reach your business goals. And we also have a pre-sales team available, so when partners have very specific technical questions, or they need us to support them throughout a sales process, we can assist them through our account manager. So I think that pretty much sums it up. So I think if we have a bit of time, then we can look after those questions.
Yep. Okay, so let's pick it up with, let's see, JC, I think we had an outstanding question. I don't know if you have the answer yet, but
okay. And if I don't have the answer, I can give you the answer later, at a later time.
That's right. That's right. So Peter Cole had asked, is advanced threat protection available with Microsoft 365 Business?
Yeah, I remember. I couldn't find the information. I will give you that information as soon as I find it. Sorry about that.
Okay. We have, boy, this is interesting. The question of the day seems to be regarding Windows 10. Mm-hmm. So we've covered off on a couple of those. Let's see, Lawrence Steinhardt had said Windows 10 Enterprise will only upgrade from Pro 10.8.7, that's right. Don Elam, a longtime SMB Nation member, asked and says, I thought you had to have Windows 7 or 8 or 10 license already, and Microsoft 365 does the upgrade to the latest Windows 10 Pro. Thanks. So loosely translated, folks, Don is asking or saying that you already have to have Windows when you start this journey. JC or Stephanie, is that your understanding?
No, as I said earlier, there will be some machine that will come with the Microsoft 365 powered mention, and those devices you'll have just to enter your ID and password to get it. You don't necessarily need to have Windows 7, 8, 8.1, or even Windows 10 to get the Microsoft 365 OS, that is Windows 10 Pro for the Business Edition, and it's Windows 10 Enterprise for the Enterprise Edition. Okay.
Steph Holt asks, what are the migration tools available? Migration tools.
Yeah, could you be a little bit more specific in terms of migration? Because we do offer migration services. Are we talking to Microsoft 365 or from a different environment, let's say hosted Exchange onto Microsoft 365?
Yeah, I know Steph pretty well. Steph, if you want to clarify that, we'll circle back. We have David Matlin is asking, basically what are Microsoft Power Apps included, and with what version of 365? So Microsoft Power Apps.
I might have this information close.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm actually looking back on the slides if there was something about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on.
That might be a question that we answer later, but
We'll
I'm
check
checking
into
right
it.
now.
Just to make sure that with the different versions that
Yep.
right specifically, yeah.
Okay, we have Nareesh asking, what is the cost per user for 365?
Right now, the retail price is going at $20 US.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Steph, okay, Steph Holt has clarified. He's saying the migration is to, so the migration is to Microsoft 365 from another tenant or IMAP based email system. So Stephanie, I think you were starting to answer that, but it's the migration too. Very much like we see people migrating Exchange over to 365 today.
Mm-hmm. And that would be the same process as to going to Microsoft 365. Now, considering that would be a migration not from Office to Microsoft 365, this is a service that SureWeb offers, and this is included in our service offering, actually. We've migrated so many organizations at this point that we really assist our partners in doing that. You would there's quite a bit of information available on our website regarding that.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go on our website, and there in the Microsoft 365 section, there's a section that talks about migration for Microsoft 365.
Okay, and then we have Nareesh asking a clarifying set of questions. The individual says, is $20 the reseller cost or the customer cost that you quoted?
That would be the Microsoft retail cost right now.
Retail, okay.
Yes.
And then the individual asked, do you bill direct to customer or us? So who does the billing to the customer?
That's a really good question. We have different partner program, and it really is up to the partner to decide. We have a white label program, which allows you to use our portal and with that information turn around and invoice your own customer. But we also have another program, the advisor program, in which we can take care of it. So that really depends on your preference.
Okay. And this is actually a good point. We talked about earlier the new podcast series that SMB Nation has launched, and in part with the generous support of SureWeb. And if you go to smbnation.com, click on podcast, sign up for the 3, because we actually talk about some of this, right? We talk about the different ways that partners have worked with SureWeb, and everybody's just a little bit unique. We're all the same, but we're all unique. Mm-hmm. With that said, folks, I want to give a last call for questions. I'm kind of clearing out the ones that we can reasonably answer. Make sure I haven't missed any. Steph Holt says advanced threat protection is most likely in Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 2. Some of these are comments. We have David Spiegelman asking, back to Microsoft Windows, boy howdy, we've sure keyed in on the question. Okay, so David says, I guess that another way to phrase it is that I am unclear as to whether this includes a bare metal install solution for Microsoft Windows. JC, want to tackle that one? So bare metal and installing Microsoft Windows. So I think what I interpret it to be is I could go in my basement and grab an old desktop, and just F-disk it, wipe it out, and then can I install Microsoft 365 at that point? That's how I would ask it.
Mm-hmm.
JC, go ahead.
Yeah, there's no problem in installing Microsoft 360. Of course, there's going to be minimum requirements, but you can definitely do it on a computer that has been laying there for a couple of months or years. That's not the problem. You download you download Microsoft 365, and it's going to put all the setups that you need for the company that is linked to your Microsoft 365 account. So yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, it will provide you the latest version of Windows 10, and it will keep updating it.
Yeah.
As long as it gets updated.
Yeah, as long as Microsoft's gonna exist, which is probably a long time.
Yeah, but hopefully not when you're hosting a webinar and your machine gives you that we need to restart. We need to restart message. I tell you, everybody on this call has had that happen.
Yeah.
and your machine kind of goes away for a while. With that said, folks, again, okay, here's a question from Peter Cole, or an observation. Peter Cole is offering, thank you, Peter. Peter says, you must have at least Windows 7 license to play the game. Refer to some footnotes in an earlier slide. Okay, Peter, thank you. Thomas Craig is asking, you can install Microsoft Office 365 on an existing PC if you install Windows 10 Fall Edition. Thomas, do you mean Full Edition? And get the number for Windows Pilot. You can also sysprep the PC and get the automatic Microsoft Office 365 install. Boy, that's a mouthful. But thank you, Thomas. And then JC, I don't know if you have comments on that. I'll move on.
Yeah,
okay, I'll move on. Nareesh is asking for clarification that we can make an Intel white box so we can install direct to that. I actually like that. I was actually on a call with Intel earlier today. So I actually like that question. And so an Intel white box, and JC, if I'm tracking with you, yes, you can take an Intel white box and then install Microsoft 365, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's basically bare metal. Yeah.
I want to ask Stephanie.
I'd like to verify that one.
Yeah, me too.
You wanna, okay.
I don't want to give a hard answer on this one either. Just send a question. I need to check this. It's very specific, and I don't want to say something that's not the case.
Well, no, absolutely. It's a new SKU, and that's entirely fair, JC and Stephanie. You will receive the questions after the webinar, so if you want to look out for the ones from Nareesh and then also Brian from earlier. My friend Ron Hardy is asking or saying, another way to ask the question, Ron says, are local schools provide Google Chrome tablets to students for some tasks? Fair enough, Ron. This also locks them into the Google Web Office apps. Is the idea behind Microsoft 365 similar? So we're talking about stickiness.
Whoa, okay. I don't have the answer to this one either.
I'm trying to understand. So, for example, in the schools, there is a limitation to only using Google Apps and not Microsoft.
Right.
And the question is whether Microsoft has the same strategy with. I don't believe so. There's absolutely no indication of that. I think that would be a policy put in place by the schools, but there's nothing to indicate that Microsoft would take that strategy. And also, there's nothing in Microsoft. And I mean, I think one of the data protection feature is not to let data be copied from, let's say, an protected Office app onto another one. But that really is not that they cannot coexist. It's just that you can't transfer the data outside of the business context.
Yeah. No, that seems reasonable. Well, folks, let's do this. We've cleared out the pressing questions. There's one or two that deserve follow-ups from SureWeb, so they'll be getting these questions and have the ability to communicate back to you. JC and Stephanie, thank you for playing in our reindeer game today and giving us a first look at Microsoft 365. Folks, again, a couple of things. We have the fourth quarter analyst report coming up. I believe that's on the 30th. We will be visiting with our friends from SureWeb again on December 13th. A webinar. We have Thanksgiving coming up. We have no known events between now and the end of the year. Usually I can tell you about different events. However, at this point, Jenny and I are booked down in the San Jose area around December 12th and 13th if you want to raise your hand and you want to have a beer down in the Bay Area. Thank you very much for attending. We are basically at time. Have a great, and we're getting some thank yous from people here. Ron Hardy says, Merry Christmas and thank you. Lawrence Steinhardt wants a virtual holiday party. Lawrence, I like it. We need to bring back the virtual office party in about a month. That's always a lot of fun. And thank you from Thomas Craig. Okay, boy, I'm being overwhelmed by thank yous. It was a great job. Again, JC and Stephanie, thank you very much. Jenny, thanks for your help in the control room. Have a great day, everybody.
Well, happy Thanksgiving to all of you. We'll be thinking about it in Canada and taking part of Black Friday.
There we go. All righty. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you.